Hi everybody. So I do not want this channel to be the AOC is awesome channel, nor do I want it to be a constant stream of American politics. I had a nice video planned about how autism affects my ability to market myself as an author, but the online left is at it again. And I figure we have to address this now because it was going to come up at some point. So Ryan Knight made this tweet. AOC in a virtual town hall tonight. Biden has definitely exceeded expectations that progressives had. A lot of us expected a much more conservative administration. This is gaslighting. Biden and the Democrats are doing less than the bare minimum. AOC is a fraud and a sellout. Wow. Harsh. Tell you what. How about we watch the town hall that AOC did? And we'll watch it together. I will watch it right alongside you. And we will see what she said in full context. And then we can all decide for ourselves how we feel about that. Just gotta put in my headphones here. So this is her video. It's called the New York 14 Virtual Town Hall with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. The relevant section starts at 1 hour and 6 minutes. We're going to queue up the video to exactly that spot. And we will see how she reacts to a question about President Biden. Are you ready? Okay. Well, let's go.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Great. Hi, Congresswoman. Thanks for doing this. I'm curious, with the 100-day mark of the Biden presidency coming up next week, how you'd evaluate how those first 100 days went in terms of his tone, but also mainly from a policy perspective, and what that tells you about what the next 100 days and beyond could look like. And as one of the faces of progressivism on Capitol Hill, I mean, do you think the Democrats will stick together as a coalition going forward? I mean, where do you think things are going?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will say is that I do think that the Biden administration and President Biden has definitely exceeded expectations that progressives had. I'll be frank, I think a lot of us expected a much more conservative administration. And I think that his, not only what has ultimately come out, but the active invitation and willingness and collaboration with progressives in his first 100 days, or almost 100 days, has been very impressive. And so while there are there are areas where there are just plain areas of disagreement, I think that the actual conduct of the administration has absolutely been in good faith, but not just in good faith, but active incorporation of progressive legislation, and also for those of us individually. I can at least say that there has been a lot of openness and willingness and flexibility in incorporating many of our goals, requests, demands, etc. And I think that it has been to the benefit of the country. There were, in those early days with the American Rescue Plan, there was a lot of push and pull and tugging from within the Democratic Party. And there were areas where we put our foot down. There was a moment where those stimulus checks almost did not happen, or they would have happened in a smaller amount, or they would have happened for way less people. And I think that actual good faith interaction helped facilitate an environment where we could help a lot more people. And so I think that it's been good so far. I still think that it's quite early, because when it comes to some of these big things that have been passed, it's pretty much been the COVID bill. And so we're in the process of shaping the infrastructure bill. But I think that the infrastructure bill will be a key indicator on if the administration is keeping or raising its ambitions, or if that ARP was a one and done situation and that we're going smaller. I do think that the infrastructure plan is too small, but I think that his vision was right. I think that what he advanced as some of these key goals were the right ones and they were admirable ones. But I have real concerns that the actual dollars and cents and programmatic allocations in the bill don't meet the ambition of that vision of what's being sold. And so our job and what we're trying to do is really help the Biden administration in expanding that. And if we're able to do that, I think that's strong. And I think that that's a really strong indicator. In terms of cohesion of the Democratic Party, I think surprisingly, at least to me, I sense there has been a lot of collaboration in the House, given our razor thin margin. But I do think that the majority of the tension within the Democratic Party lies in the Senate. The decision by 8 senators to vote, against allowing, to vote against Senator Sanders' procedure that would essentially override the parliamentarian and include a $15 minimum wage in the ARP was extremely disappointing. And I think that there was this misperception that it would just be maybe 2 senators, but the fact that it was 8, I think was quite shocking to a lot of people. And I think it's a dynamic, especially when we are kind of done with our second reconciliation bill, could potentially just add a little bit more to that tension. And so how we resolve that is going to also be a key test.
Okay, so you might have noticed me kind of laughing at one point. I wasn't laughing at AOC. I was laughing because it occurred to me that she has learned how to talk like a politician, which is she has learned how to talk without any breaks. I was actually quite impressed because I was looking for a point where I could interject and say what I was thinking, but she was just nonstop. And politicians do that primarily because if you give your opponent a chance to interject, your opponent will interject. But that's not a bad thing. That's just an observation that I found somewhat amusing. Okay, so let's go through some of her points. She thinks that the Biden administration has exceeded expectations, but note the caveat that she added there. I think we all expected this to be a much more conservative administration. So basically, she thinks the Biden administration exceeded expectations because those expectations were at rock bottom. So he did a little bit better than absolutely terrible, and she basically expressed that in slightly more diplomatic language, which she has to do because, as she said there, she's actually made some inroads with that administration, and she kind of needs them to listen when she pushes them on things like investing more in the stimulus bill or supporting the Green New Deal or anything along those lines. Like, if she completely, burns them, she's not going to be welcome there, and they're not going to hear her out when she has major policy proposals. But she gave an honest, if diplomatic, answer. I don't see anything wrong with that. She also listed several criticisms of the Biden administration, including an insufficient infrastructure package and her disappointment with the Democrats in the Senate, who technically aren't part of the Biden administration, but she is criticizing her own party there. I don't see a problem with this. I mean, unless you're really objecting to the idea that a politician is using diplomatic language, which... Sorry? Honestly, I'm not sure what Ryan and his supporters were expecting from AOC here. I mean, were they expecting her to come on this stream and say, Joe Biden is a right-wing war criminal jackass and I hate him and yada, yada, yada? It's like, she's not going to do that because regardless of what she thinks, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, so I don't know. Maybe she likes Joe Biden, maybe she can't stand him. I have no idea. She's been critical of him in the past. I am not asserting anything about what she may think about him now. But regardless of what she may feel about him, she is going to be somewhat diplomatic because that's the only way she's going to get progressive policy through. Because it's not just Biden that she would alienate if she went on the warpath. She would alienate Pelosi, she would alienate Schumer, she would alienate everybody in the conservative wing of the party. And, she's going to have to do a lot of arm twisting to get them to listen to her on things like progressive policy, which, if you listen to previous parts of the town hall, which I did, there's a great section on the Green New Deal at about 15 minutes. If you listen to previous sections of the town hall, you will hear all of the progressive policies that she's in favor of. And she's going to have to do a lot of arm twisting to make those things happen. So burning other Democrats over, just to make a performative gesture on YouTube really isn't a good strategy for getting progressive policy through. But okay, now let's look at some of these tweets. At this point, I don't even think AOC is a sellout. I think she's always been a fraud, and that's why they've utilized her in such a way. AOC is straight up gaslighting. Sorry you don't understand words. This was my first real clue that she had sold out. Read the New York Times article's screenshots closely. She's signaling what she values is power. Her analysis of Obama isn't his war crimes or Connor Lamb's opposition to Medicare for All. It's that Lamb didn't spend $200,000 on Facebook ads. AOC needs to be primaried immediately. She peddles the most dangerous currency for the movement, hope. As long as she is in that seat, progressives have hope that something will get done eventually. They aren't fighting as hard because they think they are making progress. Rational discourse does not work for people who aren't using rationality to begin with. The fraud squad changed the flavor of the Kool-Aid, but they are still full of shit. Progress dies in the Democratic Party. Please read about Debs and things he said 100 years ago. Still true today. Yeah, this is just doomerism. Like, this, straight up, this is just doomerism. Everything is pointless. No matter what we do, the corporate control is absolute. We cannot make a difference. I am not voting for a Democrat. I am not voting for a Republican. I have completely given up on electoral politics, which, fine, okay? Because I agree that electoral politics doesn't change nearly as much as we would like it to, but then there is no alternative. Have you noticed this? We're not talking about strikes. We're not talking about sit-ins or pressure campaigns directed at anybody who isn't AOC. We're not talking about any of the forms of direct action that would lead to change outside of electoral politics. It's just, this is hopeless. There's nothing we can do. These people sell out. The system corrupts them the instant they touch it, like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. So now I gotta ask you, who benefits when the left is demoralized? Because it's not the left, right? I am not saying to you that Ryan Knight is some right-wing psyop guy. I don't think that's true. I think he's a genuinely decent person who is justifiably frustrated, and that frustration is coloring his perceptions somewhat. I've been there, right? I've been that guy who says this is pointless, there's nothing that we can do. I think it's kind of I don't want to use the term a phase, but I think it's something that every socialist goes through at some point, because it's when you really come out against capitalism that you become aware of just how severely the system is stacked against you. But regardless, when the left gives up like this, the right gains a serious advantage. And unfortunately, whether he intends it or not, Ryan Knight and others in this vein are convincing people to give up. I mean, just look at some of the responses that I quoted for you there. So my honest assessment is this. Yes, Biden has exceeded my expectations too, because like AOC, my expectations were down at rock bottom, and he did a little better than absolutely terrible. Remember that video where he talked about his support for unions?
I made it clear when I was running that my administration's policy would be to support unions organizing and the right to collectively bargain. I'm keeping that promise. Every worker should have a free and fair choice to join a union. The law guarantees that choice. And it's your right, not that of an employer. It's your right. No employer can take that right away. So make your voice heard. Today and over the next few days and weeks, workers in Alabama and all across America are voting on whether to organize a union in their workplace. This is vitally important, a vitally important choice as America grapples with the deadly pandemic, the economic crisis, and the reckoning on race. What it reveals the deep disparities that still exist in our country. And there should be no intimidation, no coercion, no threats, no anti-union propaganda.
Yeah, that's not something I would have expected to hear from Joe I love credit card companies Biden. Okay? I was pleasantly impressed. Now, you could make the argument that he's just putting on a performance because he knows that the PRO Act will never pass. Maybe. You know, I can't say with any degree of certainty whether that is the case. But even the performance was not something you would have gotten like 5 years ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that we are having an impact. It's not always immediately visible, and I think that that contributes to a lot of the frustration that a lot of leftists feel. I think that if we keep pushing, we can reach a point where we are doing the necessary transitions to a green economy before we hit that critical point of no return. I think that leftist activism is more important now than at any other time in the last 100 years, and I think the last thing we need right now is to be further demoralized. So I would implore people like Ryan and others sort of tweeting in that same vein to really think about the message that they're sending. I am not asking them to become cheerleaders for the Democrats. The Democrats suck. Like, as an institution, right? They suck. Individual Democrats are okay. AOC being one, Rashida Tlaib being one, and so on. We could go down the list, but you know who these people are. But as an institution, they suck. We can all acknowledge that. But even as a sucky institution that they are, we're still kind of dragging them in the right direction, perhaps too slowly, but if you want to accelerate that process, it seems to me that the correct course of action is not to give up, but rather to push harder. So, yeah, just really think about the message that you're sending and whether you want to demoralize the rest of the left. And that's about all I have to say on that issue. So yeah, obligatory buy my book thing, whatever. Like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you all soon. Thanks for coming by.